If I might respond to a very interesting text you got from an earlier person today, when the person said, or the listener said, there's too much focus on a high-tech industry, right? Now,
Indeed.
That's a very interesting point, but let me give my take on that. The high-tech industry is like the sort of the Prussians, or the lead, the vanguard, right? They're in the lead. They're the industries of the future. But behind them, and typically in a high-tech industry, there are many levels of different employment, right, in that industry. And most importantly, they require huge support industries and services of all kinds, because more and more industries they're outsourcing their maintenance, their catering, all kinds of various services. So a high-tech industry, it creates multiple other jobs that end up in employment in shops, restaurants in an area, right?
So it's like the rising tide raising all boats, indeed. The tech industry is kind of leading the charge.
It does, because Orlaith, the only time I ever hear Irish people reflecting on that is when an industry closes. And then you hear the people saying, well, the workers in that industry, actually they spent a lot of money in our hotel or in our restaurant or in our cafe or in our hairdressers. And it's only at that point that we actually realise the importance of it. So there's an apparent... It sounds elitist to be pursuing the high-tech industry, but in fact it's creating huge opportunities, multiple opportunities for other people of many qualifications.
All right, Padraic White is the chairperson of the Louth Economic Forum. He's staying right with us and he will be back in just a moment.
Michael Reid on LMFM is heard live from 9 a.m. weekdays, and this is a repeat broadcast of the programme. But you can make comment right now on our 24-hour comment line. Call us now or anytime on 1850 365 958. That's 1850 365 958. And the lines are open now. Orlaith Carmody on LMFM.
Now we're continuing our Thought Leaders series here on LMFM, and I have Padraic White, the chairperson of the Louth Economic Forum, in studio with me. Padraic, you were saying there just over the break that although you're not from Louth, you're an honorary Louth man because you've been married in for quite a while.
Yes, my wife is Mary White, Senator Mary White, and Mary was Mary Casey. Her father was a postman in the post office in Dundalk, and she grew up in Hill Street. So Louth has a huge influence on her, and she was steeped in the legends of Finn McCool and the Queen Maeve and the Tombo Coolia and republicanism. So it's actually it's deeply imprinted on her, probably more than any other influence.
So when you were saying you were selected for the role of chairperson of the forum for your independence, you do have an ear being bent there occasionally, I'd imagine. Yeah, well, I
have a sort of a spiritual interest in County Louth from that point of view, and to be fair, I'm excited by the potential of the county, and I love development, and I've spent all my life trying to make things happen.
You were the CEO of the IDA back in the day, and I know you were responsible for bringing, or partly responsible for bringing companies like Microsoft and IBM and all of those into the country. They must have been very exciting times. How did that come about? What was your earlier career that led to that?
Well, basically I come from County Leitrim, from North Leitrim, and I came to Dublin at the age of 17, to find my fortune. And I was very lucky that I was passionate about creating jobs in the smaller communities in Ireland. So I basically talked my way into a job in the Industrial Development Authority when it was being established in 1970. And I had the great fortune to be there at its very foundation. And I spent 20 years in the Industrial Development Authority and 10 years as the Chief Executive. And that was an amazing privilege when I look back on it now. Because if you think back to 69-70, when IDA set out to conquer the world, basically to establish Ireland as a major centre for electronics and computers and software, and most people didn't even know what we were talking about.
Very ambitious plan.
Right? And we had rotten telecommunications, rotten roads. We had trouble in Northern Ireland. But there was an amazing passion and commitment to Ireland that is still there in that organisation. So when it came to, if you take, say, like Intel, which is probably the greatest investment that Ireland has seen in terms of the employment in billions and its quality in the electronics industry. I mean, they made a decision to come to Europe in 1989, But IDA was working for 10 years in courting Intel. And I recall being at functions in Silicon Valley, maybe 7-8 years before that. We would invite one of the three founders, to an event and get them familiar with Ireland, so that when they decided to come to Ireland, and they had a starting list of 16 different countries, which they whittled down to 8 and then 4 and then 2. And, this is like winning a major investment like that is like the Olympics.
So you were kind of the pioneers of inward investment, really?
Oh, IDA was, and it pioneered most of the ways in which it could be done. And it was out of necessity. Before I leave Intel, could I just say that one of the absolute key men in Intel, all these things are a huge team effort between your office in Silicon Valley, your people in Dublin, the local authorities, everybody, and Ireland Inc. has to play. But one of the absolute central people in that was Frank Ryan, who's also from County Louth and who's currently Chief Executive of Enterprise Ireland. Frank was basically at the centre of the sharp end of winning Intel.
I can see his house across my fields.
So he is, he deserves great credit for that. But yes, Ireland, because we're a small country, because we were on the edge of the Atlantic, not in the middle of Europe, the challenge of persuading somebody, and international companies, instead of being the centre of Europe and Germany and France, they should be on this sort of island on the edge of Europe. That required a massive commitment and persuasion and developing the whole facilities to do that. And that's what IDA did. And that's why, in a way, IDA stands out and Enterprise Ireland in the state sector as where people will go the extra mile. They've always had that philosophy, whatever it took. People went the extra mile.
After all of that development, Padraic, after all of that, as you say, that lovely spirit of trying it and doing it and breaking boundaries and breaking barriers, were you very surprised, very disappointed at the downturn and that we have to sort of crank up and do it all over again?
Well, not really, because, business cycles are part and parcel of life. And when you look back historically, whether it's back to the Great Crash or back in different centuries, you have to expect a business cycle. What was crazy about Ireland was that people went on as if there was going to be no downturn and no business cycle, whatever. Obviously the extent and the collapse at the same time of business plus finance plus planking, that has put us into an extraordinarily difficult position that will take...
Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel?
It's going to be... I'm involved in mini business myself. It's going to be really, really hard for the next at least 2 years, and people are in the survival business. If you're in business, you're in the survival business. As
long as you're on the pitch, you're playing football, isn't that it?
Yeah.
Padraic White, Chairperson of Louth Economic Forum, thanks indeed for joining us. It's a pleasure to talk to you.